Hey, good morning, and welcome to another episode of the Fueled Life podcast. And what the intention of this podcast is for those of you that have joined me for the first time, for those of you that have been with me for a while, you know what this podcast is about. It's about creating a fueled life, not to have just a life that's just getting by, just barely making it. You're getting sluggish in the morning and you just go that way all day. This is about taking simple steps that you can do and implement into your life so that you can have an actual fueled life. That's what this is about. Or this is not the Fueled Life podcast. That's my other podcast. See, here's where I'm at. This is about being real, about creating a future that's successful. All right. A stronger futures project. I'm all over the place. So here, bear with me. You know, I do the ADD stuff. So that's my ADD that just kicked in, just an automatic. So anyway, what I want you to think about is taking your energy and creating a stronger future. And actually, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So scratch all that other stuff. You can tell we're live. And I love it. So I am joined with my host today, Lex Vuko, who is a health coach that has 2 decades. Isn't that amazing? That's 2 decades. Think about that. 20 years of experience about helping people transform their health. And she demystifies it. And you are going to be just riveted by not only her stories as I have. That's why I'm so excited to have her join me today. So I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to let Lex talk and share a little bit about herself. Welcome, Lex.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Lex. I do have now, it's crazy to say, 2 decades of experience in fitness and health industry. And I've struggled with my health and my weight a couple times. I competed in amateur bodybuilding, boxing, and kickboxing. And all of these things have taught me so much about the body, about health, about how mainstream information is not really real. And so I have very unconventional ways of teaching people and guiding them through a process of becoming their best selves.
That's awesome. Now, I want to ask you this question now that I'm getting my train of thought back. Uh, is what made you want to get into this? I mean, what was your draw to this?
I couldn't point to one thing specifically.
Right.
My dad was a little more health conscious when I was growing up, so we had organic food, which wasn't like normal food back
Right.
then. Um, and so I think that he instilled some foundation in me. But then I moved to United States when I was 17, 16 or 17, and I gained a good amount of weight in like the first 2 or 3 months, which is like a typical story for a European moving to United States. And so actually at that point it was vanity because I was again 17 and I thought I was going to go back to Europe where I'm from a year later, and I was like, "Oh my god, what just happened to me here?" And so what happened is obviously that my identity of who I believed I was did not match what I felt that I looked like,
Okay.
and that's more the psychology that I learned later on. And that's when I really started diving more into workouts, and then all of the other things slowly started coming on as my own struggles started appearing and more weight issues and then doing things that I'm told to do and then being in a fitness industry and following the rules that they teaching me when I started feeling like the worst mentally and emotionally, only to realize physical aspect is just one of it. And
Mhm.
so as I worked on me and then as I had more and more clients coming into my studio that I had in Nashville, well, Franklin, Tennessee, I started like realizing how much more there is to health, the mental health, the emotional health, how much sleep and nutrition affect us. And it's not just the workouts. And so it just evolved over these 20 years. And then I just realized how important that is and how lied people are, and they believe those lies, which is why they feel like they're banging their head against the wall for so many years.
Right.
And that's why I was like, I need to spread this word. This is the information that needs to go out. People need to know this thing. So it just kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, you bring up that point about that being physical, being physically fit is not just about going to the gym and working out and hitting the weights. I mean, when I was younger, I was benching 350 in bench press, and I weighed 145 pounds. And I was a wrestling coach. I was athletically inclined, very athletic. But and I ate decent, but I didn't eat great. And I pumped my body with Gatorade, and I didn't eat much, but I ate a lot of candy bars. Okay, so I was getting fast energy, but it was, as I learned, as I've grown to understand, it was actually poisoning my body. Now, I could go, and I wore it like a badge of honor, that I could go on little sleep. I was a workaholic. So I could work until midnight, go to sleep till 3 o'clock or 3:30, get up and go to work in a facility, and then do a side hustle afterwards. And then by the time I got home, I was eating late. I was eating just before I went to bed, and I had no idea. And that correlation, once I brought that together, it was like the puzzle pieces were coming together. My energy actually increased, and I feel like I'm in better shape now that I'm older than I was when I was younger. So
Yeah.
to speak into
Yeah. I
that,
mean, one of the things is like the numbers that you shared, how much you bench press. And, you hear, especially when it comes to men, you hear that that's like the society we live in, like how much can you bench press? How much can you squat? Women are more in the cardio. So those are both misconceptions where really neither one of them is focusing on health, right? And
right,
so, and I did that. I competed in bodybuilding. It's one of the unhealthiest sports out there that at least I know of. It destroyed my body. And that's the whole physical thing, is like I had a six pack. I looked great by these fitness standards, but I was miserable. I had to
Mhm.
weigh my food. I went into binging, like I developed a binging disorder because of it. And it took me years to figure out how to get my body back in balance. So all these things that we're taught through mainstream that are like, oh, this is what being fit is, it's a lie. We don't need to strive for a six pack. We need to strive for overall health. And
Right.
and again, yeah, we live in society that tells you, hustle. Your identity is defined by your work. And I did that. I had a fitness studio for 8 years. I ran by myself until later I had employees, and my sleep was a mess. A mess. I'm a night owl. I had the first session at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I would have to get up at 5, and then had the 6 o'clock session. Then I would have to like nap in between, sometime work. It was a complete mess, and it's not something you can sustain for long term. And the turning point for me really to really focus on health was after the binging disorder and all of that. It was like, whoa, what just even happened to me? I wasn't good mentally, emotionally. And then later on, 5.5 years ago, when my son was born, it was like, okay, now it's all about health and longevity, and how can I be here for my son for a long time in a healthy, proper way, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually healthy, because those are all the aspects of it that actually matter to have a really great life. And I have then worked on creating a life where I can sleep as much as I need to and wake up without the alarm. And so we have to sometimes get away from, again, what we've been taught, and question that. Like, my favorite is, I need to get a t-shirt that says question everything. Question, do I need that much sleep? Why do I then need the alarm? Do I need to work 5 days a week? Do I need to be working 10-hour days? What is it that I actually want out of life? This is why I think so many people are suffering mentally these days and emotionally, because we're so far from how humans lived up until recently. And in the last 40, 30 years, we managed to completely turn it around. We're supposed to spend more time in nature. We're supposed to sleep more. We're supposed to sleep more in winter. We're supposed to work less and actually have free time. And then none of us do that, or majority of people doesn't do that. And then we wonder why we're having depression, anxiety, and
Mhm.
elevated mental health issues.
And I think it's beautiful that we're talking this language, especially today. Today is the World Mental Health Day, and and it wasn't planned, but when we set these things up, we never know what we're going
Right.
to trip over, and that's one of those things. So when you're talking about sleep, and you're talking about nutrition, you're talking about working out, not just being massively big, not being able to just move weights like an ox, but to be able to be operating as a human being, because we're not an ox. And how many times have I seen in the weightlifting industry, a lot of these bodybuilders, they've got a dysfunctional body in a short period of time. Yeah, they held the world record, but they can't even walk. There's a gentleman, and I know I'll mess up his name, but he had the world squat record, deadlift record, and now he can't even walk.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his name. It just came to me. That's my ADD that kicks in. But it's the idea that we've got to have balance, and that's what you're talking about, because you went from that extreme one side or the other, and then you binged, and then you dove deeper into it, and you were having the six pack, but you didn't have the capacity in the most crucial area, your mind, your thinking, and your cognitive thinking. And when you woke up, waking up de-energized and exhausted already, now you've got to force yourself to push through. And if you are anything like myself in the performance area, you don't let anybody else know.
Yes.
And
Yeah, that's how you get burnt out, right? And that's the whole. So people don't like these terms, masculine and feminine energy, but they are yin and yang. Okay, if somebody's feeling, I don't want to be, and I was one of those. I'm female, obviously, and I had a hard time accepting the whole feminine energy thing. But that's the yin and the yang, right? Like there has to be balance. And it's again, question everything. When I was in bodybuilding, like I thought I was doing everything right, and I was like trying to point out to everybody that I'm doing the right thing, but it was really a void that I was trying to fill in my own life, because everything boils down to mental health. If you're not feeling like, again, 1 to 10, if you're not feeling like a 9 or 10 daily in your mental health, then nothing else matters. It doesn't matter that your body looks amazing if you feel like crap. What I want is I want to feel healthy, but then look healthy. Like the feeling comes first. We also know people who are not necessarily in best shape, but are the happiest people that you know, right? So if bodybuilding is the way to go, bodybuilders would be living the best lives and they'd be the happiest people. They're not. If one thing or another was, it's not that. It's the balance. The swimmers are not the healthiest or happiest. Like it's a balance. And we have to decide for ourselves what that actually looks like for us. And when we're diving too much into one area, like we're obsessed with food and we're obsessed with nutrition, we're obsessed with working, right? Productivity, and we're obsessed with every minute of our day. We're obsessed with how our body looks. That's the area we need to question and say, why does this matter to me? What am I trying to prove something? And taking the ego out. And that's the yin and the yang, because we have to step into one and the other at different times of our lives. But if someone's been in yin their whole life and now they're going into yang, it is a pendulum. So they're going to swing one way too much until we find that middle ground, until we find what works for each individual person. But there are things that are the foundation. We have to look at how humans lived for thousands of years and not deny that. Because we go, oh, we need to diet. No, wait. Humans lived for thousands of years eating the regular normal food. The question really is, what have we done to food that we need to diet? That's the question. It's not which diet is the best. If people are not mentally well, what has changed? Social media is there, less time outside, less feeling safe, right? Not getting enough sleep. That's one of the first ones, because again, so most studies have been done on men. The whole 6 to 8 hours is actually for men when it comes to hormonal balance. Men can run on 6 to 8 hours their whole lives. Women need 8 to 10 hours because our adrenal glands produce the most adrenaline that we then run on, where for men, it's testosterone and adrenals. So we do differ, where most studies have been done on men, and which is why we hear 6 to 8 hours. But then in the hustle culture, you hear men who are like, I get up at 4:30, I get up at 3:30. It's like starting to get, my thing is, I don't wake up till the alarm. Like I don't have the alarm. I want to sleep till I want to sleep. But there was a point in my time when I would have judged myself for saying that as being too lazy. So this is why we get really into like this whole colorful area now, because there are so many things to look into and question. But the first question is, what do I need to do for me to have better mental health? Because everything comes down to mental health.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. And, this is not taught in schools. And I say this over and over. I am a recording over and over. Other than math, English, and history, the priority should be our mental health and normalizing it and being able to have this is not a touchy-feely thing. This is a life thing. This is what makes the difference when we're trying to shape our children to become productive human beings. The very essence of that foundation should be on mental focus. And what is amazing to me is when I dove into the brain health and became certified with Dr. Amen, was that I discovered that a man's brain is not fully formed until he's 27, and a woman's brain is not fully formed until she's 25. Now I start doing a little math in my mind, and I'm going, maybe that's why at 25 the insurance rates drop, because now you're starting to make better decisions. And here's what really ticked me off was we had an experience in a family, and my son made a bad decision. He was under 18, but when he was 18, then he paid a price, and he's still paying the price, and he's 27. And the price is that the system went after somebody that was not equipped. On top of that, he had ADD. He still has ADD, ADHD. It doesn't go away. Okay. So I've got it. It doesn't go away. It just doesn't go away. I manage it, and I never took a pill for it. But what I say is I bring that up because our mental health is not taught. And when you understand that if you have head injuries before something is fully formed, now you're going into the game with an inadequacy, and it may not show up today, it may not show up tomorrow, but it will show up. And you'll find yourself going, what in the heck am I doing? Why am I thinking the way that I'm thinking? What could I have done better? And we start then ruminating. And now our gut health is not well because we've got cortisol suppressing all of the enzymes that our body's trying to create. Our brain can't detoxify because we're getting up at 4:30 in the morning. We're setting an alarm, and then we're going to bed. We're eating late. We're going to bed, and we've got bright lights, and then we shut the light off. Now our brain is active and not able to slow down. It's kind of like hitting the brakes at 100 miles an hour. You're not going to come to a stop unless you hit a brick wall. And what you're saying, and I love the way that you brought that up, is you hit that brick wall and something had to change.
Yeah.
Because you were going on the extreme. So, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things in the brain, like you said, at 25 to 27, it stops developing. And that's for people who didn't even have severe trauma, because trauma is not what happened to us, it's how our body responded to what happened to us. In which case, it does not necessarily even finish at that age, for one. For two, brain scans, as I'm sure you already know, because you're the expert on that, are showing that children that were abused or that have trauma, their brain actually has physical scars on it, and the frontal lobe is not even developed properly.
Right.
So now we're talking about it's a different thing. But when it comes to society, it's like we don't have time or patience for that. This is where we're lacking compassion. And with that said, I have a client, I'm still working with her. She was on 18 different medications. She was put on different labels on her mental health. We got down to half of one medication. So we got from 18 to half of one medication. And one of the biggest things was that she took all of the labels off of her. Basically, she was like, well, she goes, I wonder how I would have lived my life if I didn't believe all these things that I've been told. This is why I say question everything. And everything comes down to mental health, but that's the invisible, whether it's condition or disease or well-being, right? Like it comes down to how a person is feeling. And if we could show a little more compassion rather than anger, but we're stuck in anger, right? This is where that internal healing needs to come in. If we're stuck in anger as adults, it takes courage to look into the childhood. It takes courage to look into what has happened and how to actually learn to sit with our emotions. Like one of the things that the said client has done is when she came to me, she said, I don't know emotions. I don't know how to do emotions. She knew anger and she knew sadness, but that's all she knew. And because she was never able to express different emotions as a child. So she started learning how to just sit with the emotions. And that's what I'm saying. Like most women, most people come to me originally for weight loss. But when it boils down to that, it's like we have so many other things to work on when it
Mhm.
comes to the foundation, because then the body will go in balance. When we do all these things right, you don't have to obsess over calories. You don't have to count calories. You don't have to obsess over these things. We just got to go back to basics and set the right foundation so that then we can build up on it. Whatever it is, it's manageable. And a lot of things that we think through mainstream media, we think that are things we have to live with, like people with type 2 diabetes. It's reversible. For most people, it can be reversed. So like, why are we managing that? Why are we not curing that? And that's, again, that question that you and I talked about last time. It's question everything that you've been taught.
Yep. One of my favorite sayings is challenge the narrative. Challenge the narrative. Hey, listen, I have one God, and that's he knows everything. Everybody else, they're just another person. Now, they may have a little more education. They may be able to guide me, but I'm going to challenge the narrative that they're telling me. Who are they being promoted by, and what is their structure? Because I don't fall under an umbrella, just like any of my clients don't fall under an umbrella. And when I've worked with other coaches, they say, so what is the agenda? What is the thing that we take into the element? How do we run a coaching session? And I will say, the coaching is always about the client. And the client is going to lie to you in the beginning because they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. So when you ask somebody, what is it that you want? And you were talking about this just a moment ago, is that they want to lose weight. Well, that's what they think you want to hear because you have that capacity. But the underlying issue is the second, when you say, well, why do you want that? They tell you what they think. And then when you ask them again, why do you want that? Now they get into the heart of the matter. It's because now it's not just what I'm showing to the outside, not what I'm exposing to the public, but what I'm dealing with inside. And I'm putting the shield of weight, or I'm putting the shield of overeating, or I'm putting the shield of overworking out, isolating myself in different ways. And it's the same person with a different dress on.
Yeah, you have to ask that why at least 5 times, right?
Yeah.
And that's if they're open to it. That's why I say it takes courage, because people live, and we've all done it. We're not speaking like, oh, we've never done it. Like, we all do this. We say things we think we want because we've said it for so long to ourselves.
Right.
But when you have courage to step into and dig deeper and deal with the not so great emotions, right? Like, deal with the ugly, right? Like I always say, you got to know your good, bad, and ugly. You can't deny that you have the bad and the ugly. You just got to know it. You got to tame it. Isn't that Jordan Peterson that said the most, what is it? How did he say that? You need to be you need to be a monster, but you need to learn how to tame that monster. And I love that quote. Obviously, that's more for the masculine energy, but still, I love that quote. Like, don't mess with my child or you'll see a monster, right? But like, we all need to have that side of us. We need to know that side of us, and then we need to learn to control it. Just like I tell my clients, like when it comes to emotions, you want to learn to control them, not suppress them. But we all know how to suppress them, which means I don't want to deal with this right now, but it's still controlling my life. Controlling just means I'm not going to let it affect me in this situation right now, but when it's over, I am going to spend some time dealing with those emotions, because no one wants to consciously be like, all right, let me determine this time where I'm going to feel all these emotions that I've been avoiding for decades, right? Like, nobody feels great doing that. But oftentimes it's necessary. We got to go to the dark place. And that's that why, right? Like, why do you want to lose weight? Well, I want to look better. Well, why do you want to look better? Well, I need to, and then it gets to, well, I feel like I'm not as attractive anymore, or whatever it is, or I feel like people are judging me, or whatever it is, but it's getting to the ugly, right? It's getting to the what we don't want to hear, but that's the truth. And again, this is like putting a band-aid over a wound. If you don't spend time cleaning that wound,
Right.
that's never going to heal. As a matter of fact, it's going to be infected and affect every part of your body, right? And it's
Mhm.
exact same thing. The wound's been there, you've been putting some kind of dressing on it, but you need to actually go in there and clean that wound. And the cleaning process is really, really bad. It hurts.
Right.
We don't want to do it. We want it to stop. But once it's clean, we can put the right dressing on, still watch that wound, still watch, make sure it's right. And then over time, that develops into a scar, which is even a stronger tissue than just the skin. And then we can move on. So the cleaning part is never easy or fun or something enjoyable, but that's necessary. If I want to stop generational trauma, if I want to stop things for my son, I have to take responsibility and I have to heal. And it is one of the hardest things to do. It's so much easier to be entertained. It's so much easier to go on social media. But the hardest thing is to sit in silence and watch and face what comes up.
Yeah, that's, and Lex, I want to say that I can only imagine that there's probably another listener that fits into the category that both you and I have been in. And for my personal speaking, I've been to the physician and I got a report, or I got an experience that was totally unfavorable, and I questioned it and I wanted to go more. And they go, you know what? This is just part of age. And I go, you know what? That's BS.
Yeah.
And it's more than a belief system, but that's what it roots in. So it's BS, and you can fill in the blank, but it is the belief system that we adopt from those that we put our trust in. And this is the sacred relationship between a client and a coach. And this is what separates good coaches from great coaches, because good coaches want to get in there and they want to hold clients, they want to hold a service. But great coaches get into and they clean that wound out and they say, you're not defective, you're not broken. You have some fragments that are left over from an experience that does not define you, but you've allowed it to define you. And so it's just like the weight. It's just like the mysticalness that the Western model has created. And they've created it so mystical that, we've been scammed, and we bought into it because, hey, they're telling this to everybody. And so everybody's buying this information. And now when you get, a bunch of guppies that are swimming together, they don't swim with the sharks, and the sharks don't swim with guppies. They eat them. And what happens is if we try to play small in our own mind so that we're not really dealing with the issue, yeah, we'll buy a new dress. We'll make it blousier. My gosh, for how long were the big sweatshirts in style? And then all of a sudden it was, skinny jeans. Well, they call them skinny jeans for a reason, because skinny people are supposed to wear them. Okay. But if you're not fit to wear skinny jeans, do yourself a favor. Don't ask what you look like in them, but it's getting real with yourself. And that's not a dig on anybody that wore skinny jeans that they shouldn't have, but it's just getting real, being who you are and finding out why you want those skinny jeans and why you want to put on, a facade. Why not be real? Why not add life to your living rather than add a living, going to work 7 days a week, to your life and not really living?
Well, what you just mentioned is kind of critical, but many people don't want to talk about it, is if you get offended at something, why? Why did that offend you?
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's always on you, right? Sometimes people say things, but sometimes it's like, well, what did you expect? And I remember we're going a little broader now, but I do remember it was a couple that I was listening to. This is when I was in my 20s, and there was a couple that had a really great marriage, like 20 some years into it. And they were talking about all the things. They were like, communication obviously is like one of the things, and it's being there for each other. And that reminds me of what you were just saying. Oh, one thing that they also said is staying fit for each other.
Mhm.
And I remember talking to a friend of mine about that, because we change,
Mhm.
but we want to be treated the same way.
Mhm.
But if we've changed, other things have changed. So we cannot be expected to be treated the same way. And that goes vice versa. So
Mhm.
if I need to lose weight, or if I need to take care of my mental health, or if I need to check out, or whatever it is that I need to change in my life, get away from a certain group of people and bring in other certain people, as I change, so will things. Things have to change, but I have to change first.
Right.
I have to be the one that brings on that change. And what you said about the good coach and great coach, I always tell my clients, I'm like, if you like me the whole time, I'm not doing my job. There will be times you don't like me, but then I tell them, like, I don't take you personally, but the way you're going to treat me in this program is the way you're going to treat yourself. If you're ghosting me, that means you're ghosting yourself. I'm not offended by it.
Right.
I know what you're doing. I
Right.
know it, and I'm going to call you on it, but I know what you're doing. And one of my clients, she did ghost me for a while. And then she came back and she goes like, I can't get you out of my head. She's like, I just keep hearing you. And she was still at that time, she said, we were messaging each other, and she said, I was still unable to message you back. And she's like, thank you for checking in with me. Cause I checked in with her every like 3 days. And she's like, well, and I said, I know what it is. You don't believe in yourself yet. I believe in you. I see the beauty in you. You just don't see it yet. So we as coaches, we have been through these things and we see these things. We're not judging, but if
Right.
you feel judged, that's another thing, is why am I feeling judged? Those are all the things that we're saying. There's so much to question. And, there are people who are like, well, I don't even know what to eat anymore. I don't even know what to, I hear all these things and I'm like, well, the answers are there. First of all, we still have the blue zone, so we can look up how these people are living, because they're living really good, healthy, happy lives, long lives. And two, let's look at how humans live for thousands of years. I always go back to that.
Right.
Something has changed in the last few decades. What has changed? That's the real question, right? And then again, blue zones, one of the things is healthy food, being out in the sun, having a strong sense of family and a community. And
Right.
this is what we got away from, because we need to be independent. And I get it. It's great that I'm able to pay my bills. Like, it's good to have that kind of financial independency, but humans are communal. We're tribal.
Right.
We actually need each other. And this is where, again, when we take care of ourselves, nutrition, sleep, mental health, meditations, all of that, then we can even be there for others, which others can do for us as well. That's what keeps humans the happiest, the most.
So you talking about community, and when we understand the narrative and when we understand what the underlying foundation of any new system, these are the things that we need to take into consideration. And when we look at the over the last 4 years, when COVID took place, what was the very thing that they did? They separated people. They kept them from going outside. They kept them from going out in the sun. Hey, we're not coming into flu season, and we're stepping into fall coming up. We're in the fall right now. So we're coming up to winter. The leaves are starting to change. And people are saying, well, it's flu season. It is not flu season. What it is a vitamin D3 deficiency system
Yes.
and season. Okay. So, if you're not up on your vitamin D3, you're not getting out in the sun ample hours. Even in the summer, you're deficient.
Yes.
And understanding that is the foundation of our immunity and health, and it goes to our brain, and when our brain is healthy, the rest of our body is healthy. And you know man alive, we've focused on this one topic, but this is so critical. We've got to challenge the narrative. We've got to ask questions. We've got to question everything. I think that is so critical. Empowering people to ask questions.
Yeah, and with that said, here's what asking questions means. It doesn't mean you become a conspiracy theorist. It just means like, Okay, I teach people about nutrition. One of the things I tell them is you got to go and not look at nutritional facts, but look at the ingredients. I want you to
Right.
just get used to looking at the ingredients. That's questioning things. And because then you're like, wait, I know the front side says this, but I'm going to look at the back side. So you're questioning, and then you look at the ingredients, you're like, why does it say E150? I need to question this because I don't know what that is, and I'm putting that in this temple. So I need to
Right.
question what that is. Maybe it's safe. I don't know yet. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just question because I need to know what that is. Okay. Then you can say things like, yeah, it's a flu season. Well, why is it flu season now? Why are we saying that it's a flu season? What does it have to do with D3? Well, let me look it up. Well, how do I get enough D3? Oh, I need to get D3 and K2. That's how you get actually more knowledge. One of the biggest problems I think is kids are shut down when they ask the most important question in this world, which is why. Single most important question is why.
Right.
When they get usually shut down, they're like, because I said so, or nobody's explaining to them. And then we grow up with that, never questioning things. School teaches you this is how it is. Don't question it. Don't
Right.
question history. Don't question math. It is what it is. Learn it, and you're going to get a grade. If you question it, you're going to go and get detention. And with that said, what you said earlier, physical education, music, and art have been massively taken out of schools,
Yes.
where they are the three most important things when it comes to mental health. Physical movement is the single most important thing for children, especially after you close them in a room and tell them to sit quietly for 45 minutes with a 5-minute break in between, when we already know that's impossible to even keep the focus for that long for adults. Then they took art and music out of it, which is the art, which is the expression, which is limitless. So
Right.
everything that's left is, hey, this is the line, don't cross the line. So again, this is where we humans have to wake up and say, oh, okay, what else do I need to question? Like literally everything. Why are all the roofs like this? Why question everything? Because there's going to be questions that lead you to different answers. There will be questions that lead you to that exact answer. You're going to be like, oh, okay, cool, that makes sense. But when you question things, why am I told I need 6 to 8 hours of sleep when I seem to never feel rested? Why is it that we're waking up to the alarm? Why is it that I need to sleep more in winter? Questioning things, again, doesn't mean that you're creating a conspiracy. It just means I need to actually know why. Because what if this is not true? And like you said, even science, that first of all, the basis of science is questioning everything. That's actually supposed to be science. Science questions the already factual conclusions and then questions them again. Like that's actually what science is supposed to be. Yet people will just say, well, I trust science. Okay, well, did you actually know that until like 80s, they used to operate on babies without anesthesia because they used to believe that babies don't feel pain? They believed science in the 70s. You still have people like my husband's father was operated as a baby with no anesthesia. We don't think that leaves trauma on the brain. So
Right.
this is why we're questioning things, because science evolves. It doesn't mean I don't trust science. It just means science doesn't know everything. Doesn't know everything. So question things. Sometimes they will lead you to the same exact path. Great. Keep going on that path. At least you know you're on the right path. But maybe it's going to lead you to a different path, different lifestyle, different ways that you see everything. And again, that is to me another way of taking care of mental health, because we're questioning psychiatrists, we're questioning the labels. Like I mentioned, my client that went from 18 down to half of the medication.
Right.
Why was she on 18 medications? Who allowed that? Why did she have a psychologist and a psychiatrist? And now in her 60s, who I don't have a degree in psychology or psychiatry, can actually help through nutrition, through gut health, through sleep, through allowing her to take those labels off of herself, right? Who am I? Well, question me too. Like I tell my clients too, like when they come to me for consultation, question me. Question like that's why it's my favorite, because when you get these answers, you will actually have better mental health, because you will feel that you're not just running on your subconscious anymore and things that you've been taught.
Right.
You will actually start feeling more in charge of your life, of your health, of your well-being, because you will start discovering more and more things, and you will take that control back. And that's what takes that conscious mind. We cannot run our subconscious our whole lives without being woken up. I don't know who it was. Was it Benjamin Franklin? Or someone has said, most people die, well, men, he said, most men die at 25 and they're not buried till 85. Have you ever heard that?
I've heard a similarity to that. So yes, and that's the truth. We're dying with
Exactly.
our song in us.
Yes.
I mean, that's a tragedy. And, most people die before they live is the truth. And we don't have that on billboards, but maybe we should. Maybe we should have that.
And that's where again you question, why am I working 5 days a week? Why am I having only 2 days with my family? Why is it that I don't see my family? Those are the questions that actually made me create a completely different life for myself, that I can actually spend time with my child and then thankfully homeschool my child. And maybe someone's going to say, well, that's not possible for everyone. Well, what are the next steps that you could take in the right direction? Maybe it's not on you to stop it, but maybe it's on your next generation if you teach them to question things, if you teach them to try different things, if you teach them to develop intuition and listen to their own gut. I mean, this is obviously when it comes to brain work, we can see this because we can see how much trauma there was in the past. There was World War I. People started rebuilding their lives. There was World War II. People started rebuilding their lives. And then all these generations from that much trauma and being in the just survival mode are raising children. And now we want to say, oh, I'm just going to do the same thing that my parents did. No, that's not a part of evolution. I got to do better than my parents. And then hopefully my son's going to do better than me with his children, right? Like that's why we evolved. That's why the science changes, but it changes when we start looking into ourselves and not just blindly going with what we have been taught.
You bring up, I mean, I know we are going to have part 2, 3, or maybe 4 or 5.
Mhm.
But you bring up wanting our children to have a better future than what we had.
Yeah.
And a better future, what I want to go on the record and say, a better future is not having technology in their fingertips. It is not. Our technology has not brought us any closer together, and it has not made us any smarter. Actually, our smart devices are making us stupid.
Mhm.
And when we rely on asking Alexa or Google or whoever the question rather than doing the research, we're taking a narrative that has been preformed or preset so that we will continue to believe the narrative that is being pushed without us doing the investigative work. I remember when I was in school, we had to give references to the multiple resources that we got our information from, and we had to document. Yes. And it was on what page, what paragraph of that resource. And then we had to do a little bit of other work. So we had to give all of our references. Right now, we just go, well, I read it on Dr. Google, so therefore I've got trigger finger and it's never going to go away. I remember a lady telling me she had trigger finger, and I go, how do you got trigger finger? She said, well, I saw this thing on 60 Minutes. And they said everything, and I'm having that. I've got this trigger finger, and I'm going, oh, tell me about that. And she went on to tell me, and it's just something that her mind fabricated. And here again, it was to put a covering or a shield up to suppress or to hide what was really going on inside of her.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We have these nervous twitches. It's not necessarily trigger finger. It's not necessarily, a disease. It is just a dis-ease. You're not eased about something. And when, we bring this to what you do with your clients, what is the experience, the life change that took place from going from 18 medications? And I want to say that probably the doctors, I'm going to go out on a limb here, that those that prescribed it, they knew that there were side effects of one, so they gave another prescription to kind of balance that side effect, but they thought that they needed this one. And now they had another side effect on top of that. Now we've got a multitude of
medications. Yeah. And actually, when someone's taking 5 medications, the chances of them interfering badly with one another is 50%. That's just 5 medications.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to say that, well, first of all, I always tell her, and she allows me to share her story without, I don't use her name, but one of the first onboarding call that we had, when I remember it, it was one of the things that she was diagnosed with is being bipolar. And see that term being bipolar. So I told her, you're not bipolar. You may have bipolar. So that's the first separation. You're not that. You may have that. But then as we dug deeper into the whole bipolar thing, for example, which, by the way, I'm not saying nobody has bipolar,
Right.
but I am talking about this particular experience with this particular client.
Right.
And we talked about it, and she said, well, I guess I could just say I think a little differently than other people. In that moment, what she did, and I said, yeah. In that moment, what she did is she took that label down. She took that label off. Now, she didn't go from 18 to half a medication by herself in one day. She actually did go and check in with doctors who then allowed to lower and lower and lower. And they knew that she's wanting to get off of as many medications as she can. And so that was one of the examples, for example. Another thing is nutrition. She had a really hard time getting what I'm saying about nutrition, even though like I'll tell people step by step, let's do this, let's do one more thing here. But she had a really hard time with it. And so probably a few months into our coaching, I'm going to say 3 to 4 months, we had a call and she said, I get it. It's like all the things I've been repeating to her have just clicked. So what really happened is I brought that to her conscious mind. It was still not matching the subconscious mind.
Right.
So it was cognitive dissonance. It was like, I want to trust you, but I don't know what you're saying. And so finally, like when it matched the subconscious mind, she went, I get it. And so she started doing everything that I've been telling her, eliminating sugar, but not feeling deprived. So she added things like dates and local honey and things like that, but they eliminated processed foods. And now she knows. Now she knows one of the things that happens to her when she takes any sugar is the whole up and down.
Mhm.
So yes, she may have bipolar, but at this point, it may have 10% effect on her. She's also learned that when it's a low, it doesn't have to be this low. She's learned to manage it. She's learned the tools to make herself feel better. And we still go and we go, oh, that triggered you. That's interesting. Why would that trigger you? So we question things, right? And so what I'm saying with all of this is nutrition, sleep, healthy environment, who are the people around us, those things are never going to change. Never. Right. So if we don't look at these things, what are we looking at? We're already looking at the Band-Aid. We got to look into the primary things. We got to look into that. I had people on different things. I had a cancer patient that she was trying to not allow cancer rule her life, right? So like we got to coaching on, she wasn't overweight or anything, but she was like, okay, I'm okay with living with the fact that I have cancer, but I don't want it to affect my daily life. And so we had to work on these things. And one of the big things was nutrition. Right. And so how do we get that? And there she is. She's a homemaker. So she's now working on all of the projects that she has at home without it affecting her life. And so wherever we are, whatever our deal is, whatever we want to, maybe some people don't even know. Some people come to me, they'll say things like, I don't know. I just want to feel better. So, but we have to always look into sleep, nutrition, thoughts. I put them on a 7-day mental diet right away. We got to look into environment. Who are the people around them? What are they watching on TV and social media? Like all that, those are all the things that we have to set as a foundation. And another visual I'll give is if we look at a building, it doesn't have the right flooring or the right foundation,
right?
It's never going to be a good quality building. Right. So we actually have to demolish it first, which is a very ugly, disruptive process, right? It doesn't look right. It looks like a chaos. Nobody sees yet what it's going to be. It looks scary. But once it's demolished, if we build that strong foundation, you can build a skyscraper if you want to. This is why we have to demolish certain beliefs and certain beliefs and things that we started picking up along the way in order to rebuild. This is not necessarily a fun process. Like I said, demolishing something is not fun, but
Right.
it's so worth it because then you can build whatever you want on that. And that to me is, again, going back to mental health. That's how I build a happy life.
Yeah.
That's how I feel happy when I know that I have built me.
That is awesome. And I'm going to put your website up here. We're going to continue. I want to go a little longer, but in the middle of this right now, if you want to know more about how you can achieve this, I can tell you right now, this is part one of many, many other parts, because this conversation, it is so organic, it's so fluid. Like, I have a bunch of questions that I would love to just dive into based on how we described it. When I asked you, what are the 4 things that you'd want to talk about? We've only talked about one of those. And I want to go deeper with this, but I want you to write this website down, put it on a sticky note, and put it in a place that you're going to find it. Put it on the refrigerator, put it on your clipboard, someplace that you're going to see it. Put it on your mirror, and go to lex.pro and just schedule a call. I don't know. You have
Yep.
a complimentary discovery call that you
Yep.
just, nothing's for
I
sale.
do.
You just want to get an idea of what they're about.
Yeah, I also have a YouTube if they want to
Okay.
hear me talk about more things. That my YouTube is youtube.com/@LexVucco. So again, that's all my name. You can just YouTube me, like literally go to YouTube and type in Lex Vucco. The website also has more information on the membership and the coaching and all of that. And people can always reach out, whether it's for a consultation or just email me a question or just reach out for whatever reason. YouTube is something that I focus on as well. That's where I talk more about weight loss and fasting and hormonal health, where on the website they can find more information about the programs that I have and things like that.
Fantastic. And that's what drew me to you, because we got connected, and I'm not exactly sure how we got connected on LinkedIn, but your feeds would come up. And I don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, because you're just inundated with so much stuff. But you weren't just stuff. And so when I do open it up and I do get a notification that you posted something, it's like a quick clip, and it's like fire, and that's what drew me to say, hey, Lex, we've got to have a conversation. And from the moment that we started the conversation, it was like, I got to have you on this Stronger Futures project, because this is what it's about. And recently, like I said at the beginning, I started a Fueled Life podcast, and I'm about health. I'm about, your health is not just one element. This is what you're saying. What I want to bring up, what you brought up earlier about your client, is that when she has sugar, she doesn't take that deep dive. Now it's more like this. And what you've done is you didn't raise the ceiling, is what we're taught to do. Raise the bar, raise the ceiling, and we keep trying to break through this glass ceiling. But nobody talks about raising the floor, so that when you do have a bad day, it's not as bad as the day that was before it that was bad. So when you raise the floor, now the impact is not as detrimental. It's not as destroying what you thought was. It's not taking one step forward and 2 steps back. It's taking 1 step forward and 1 step back. It's taking a half a step forward and a half a step back, or maybe 3/4 of a step back at this point, and then taking 2 steps forward and taking 1 step back. Your low isn't as low as it was before. And in doing so, your ceiling actually raises. But without raising that ceiling ourselves, we're able to celebrate, because there's not as much difference in the distance to achieve our best day.
Absolutely. And
Amazing.
again, this is a person that used to even have suicidal thoughts. I mean, when it was a low, she would be feeling like it's the end of everything. And now she's like, oh, I'm not feeling so great. Here's what I need to do. I need to go walk. I need to go clear my head. And like, she knows now, she's telling me, okay, what else can I do? But she's like, knows what paths to do. And she's like, all right, I'm feeling better. And then we check in daily. Right. And so that's one of the things is like, the low is not as dark of a place anymore, and you know how to manage it. And again, when you feel in control, that's why I say mental health comes first.
Mhm.
And I tell this to my clients who come to me for weight loss. I say, well, let's say nothing changes. Let's say nothing changes when it comes to your weight, but you end up feeling amazing and healthy and beautiful, and you feel like everything's fitting perfectly. I say, would the weight matter? And they're like, no. Well, that's why it's not about the weight. It's
Right.
about how you feel about you. It's always about how we feel. It's always about mental, which is then leads to emotional health. Now, physical health is extremely important because it leads to that. The
Right.
client, the said client, she works out daily. Right? Like, all these things need to be in the foundation once again. But why is, for example, questioning things? Why do we already know that exercise is number one antidepressant? Yet you go to a doctor and you get an antidepressant. Why?
Right.
Why? I'm just asking why. So again, question things, set the foundation right, and don't do everything at once. If this conversation overwhelmed you, like, great, now I need to change everything, but I don't even know where to begin. What's the one thing that you can change this week? One thing. Can you meditate for 30 seconds before you go to bed? Can you observe your thoughts for one day? Can you set up your bedroom to be a more pleasant experience for you when you go to bed? Like, what is the one tiny thing that you can change? That's what you want to stick with and go with until you decide what the next thing is.
Yes. Small hinges move large doors. And
Love it.
when we apply that small hinge to any area, let's say your bathroom counter is just a disaster. Just put one thing away. Just one thing.
One.
If you want to start flossing your teeth, just floss one tooth. Get a good dental floss, okay? And I can share that next time. But there's a good dental floss, and it doesn't have all the chemicals on the floss, and the stick is not made out of BPAs, okay? It's made out of bamboo. And when you use that in your teeth, just do one tooth.
One. That's it.
And then throw it away if you
That's
can.
it.
And celebrate that, and just celebrate that every day you flossed one tooth. You're that much closer to brain health. And this is the other thing. And here's my ADD that's kicking in, is that I never understood that gum health is directly correlated to brain health.
Yes.
And when I brought this up to my hygienist, I said, how come you don't teach this in the practice? Because your gum health and your oral health is so directly connected to your brain health. That should be the first thing that you should be teaching people. And they took that out of the school system. When I was growing up, they had the dentist come in and they would give everybody a toothbrush, and they gave them the poison toothpaste, and we talked about that. But they did that each year. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Now they give you a tube of stuff that's got chemicals in it.
Mouthwash too.
Yeah, and mouthwash. Oh my God, that's just a disaster. Just for the record, so everybody knows, mouthwash destroys the nitric oxide that goes and expands your cardiovascular system. Don't believe me? Do a check it out. You never want to put mouthwash in your mouth again. So,
And it's got sugar.
And it's got sugar. Why does mouthwash have sugar? To destroy our teeth, so we can go and get told that we've got tartar and plaque buildup, right? Okay, so that's another conversation. But it is just raising the opportunity to do one more thing, just one more thing. That's it.
That's it.
Simple thing. So as we bring this segment to a close, there are so many takeaways. I'm going to say anybody should go back and watch us. And here's where I use the word should. I'm going to buy my own tape. Okay. So that's how good this session was. This is one of my favorite sessions. And the reason I say it is because we're so in align with what's going on in the body, it's going on in the mind, and it's going on in our physical and our environmental experience. You can't separate one from the other. They're all interconnected. And what we've learned is we've been taught that the way that we think is not necessarily correlated to the way that we feel, but it is. And the way that we feel is not correlated to what we do, but it is. And what we do is correlated to what we have. We're not taught that. So when I wake up in the morning and I go, this is another one of those crappy Mondays, guess what happens? You only get 2 a year, 4 a month. When it's that scarce, it should be special. So, what would you say other than jump on this website and check this out, and then also look Lex up on YouTube? You're going to get not just information, because knowledge is not power. It's the application. It's learning how to use it. And I tell people, look, if you could have done it on your own, you'd have already done it. I've got coaches. I've had coaches. I buy into programs so that I learn more about who I am, why I do what I do, my proclivities, my tendencies. And we got to have somebody on the outside looking in and give us that truth in love and really getting to our why. And then, hey, I'm not there to be liked all the time. Just like I'm your best cheerleader, but I'm not going to put a facade over it.
I don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat. Yeah, I'm not sugarcoating it.
My favorite. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for sure.
Help anybody. So, all right, I'm going to shut up because I asked you to give one thing that people could do. What is that?
The one thing is what we just said, do the one simple thing. I tell my clients, when you're setting up a new goal for the week, ask yourself, can I do this indefinitely, right? Because typically we do a big one and then we're like, I can't do that. I'm going to diet. Well, how long can you do that, right? Like, well, I'm going to floss one tooth. I can do that. I have time for that. I can have it there. I can set it up in front of my toothbrush, and I can definitely handle doing one, right? Make the goal so ridiculously small that it doesn't seem significant, but stick with it.
Right.
Because that one tooth is going to lead you to flossing more, and it's going to lead you to flossing more, and it's setting up that habit so that in a month, you cannot even just brush your teeth. You're like, I got to floss first. I have my clients when they're starting the workouts, they do 10 squats a day. That's it. And sometimes even less, 10 squats a day, because there's not much your brain can tell you to talk you out of it. You don't need to go to the gym. You don't need different shoes. You're going to lay in bed, do 10 squats just before you go to bed, right? So make one action step consistent, but they make that action step ridiculously small until you start growing that, because you're setting up the habit, and that's the most important thing. So that's it.
That's amazing. One thing that I will say is that it doesn't take any extra time if you just incorporate it in something else. So I've shared with people that I do squats when I'm brushing my teeth. Yeah. So I get 60 squats in a 2-minute toothbrushing, and there's no extra time. I'm already standing there. I might as well do something. That's my hyperactivity going, what can I do while I'm sitting here brushing my teeth? Okay. And I do these squats.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the impact that it makes the rest of the day. I start my day that way. So thank you, Lex. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
To have you. And I know I'm going to have you back on the show. So don't forget to go to Lex's website, her YouTube channel. And if you want, you can connect with her on LinkedIn as well. Just look her up.
Yes.
And until we meet the next time for a Stronger Futures project, have an outstanding week. And I look forward to seeing you all again